So this is an inside look at the horror movie genre. Table of context, we're first going to go over the genre overview, so the definition of the genre, and media codes, which includes symbolic codes, technical codes, and written codes. We're going to go over genre components, classic examples, personal favorites of mine, and then common directors and studios that are seen in the horror movie genre. So, by definition, horror films are designed to frighten and to invoke our hidden worst fears, often in a terrifying, shocking finale, while captivating and entertaining us at the same time in a cathartic experience. The subgenres of horror are slasher, splatter, psychological, survival, teen horror, found footage, serial killers, paranormal or occult, the undead, satanic, and monsters. Symbolic codes of horror movies include setting. Most settings of horror movies are dark, isolated, and in grand buildings. Examples of this are haunted houses, where the hallways are large and dark, and there's usually climactic music, which is mise scene in the backgrounds, usually when there is an protagonist approaching the main characters or when a climactic scene is approaching. Acting is a key role in the success of horror movies because the actors are supposed to portray the fear and entrapment that they're usually supposed to be portrayed in horror movies. If an actor faked a scream through a horror movie, the audience would be able to tell and it wouldn't be sold as easily to the audience. Colors often seen in horror movies are red, orange, and yellow just because they have more ominous undertones. Technical codes, camera work is very important for horror movies. A lot of horror movies use the handheld method only because it makes the audience feel like they're there with the action and it feels like they're looking into the action. They also use a lot of close frames to show the reactions of the actors and a lot of low exposure because low lighting is very important to create the eerie, ominous feeling of horror movies. Special effects and arrangements are often made in horror movies, especially anything supernatural or monster related, only because there are some things that are just not possible to be created physically without using special effects. They often have intense dialogue and music. Again, the music usually speeds up when and the antagonist is approaching the protagonist or when the climactic scene is about to happen. They have low lighting and poor quality. A lot of old movies have poor quality just because it gives you a sense of you're watching something that you shouldn't be watching. And found footage does that a lot, especially with old film, where it seems like this is a VHS tape maybe a serial killer had in their basement and you're getting to watch that. So written codes, there's a lot of printed language in horror movies, and they usually serve as foreshadowing signs like posters and hints. Like you may see a zombie apocalypse or a chemical sign if, for example, there was a horror movie about teenagers who stumble upon the zombie apocalypse and there might be a hazardous sign on the fence that they cross over. Spoken language is a lot of intense dialogue. There's a lot of yelling, screaming, confusion in horror movies. Lyrical choices, a lot of horror movies actually prefer to have high action scenes with slower songs just because it makes a more eerie feeling. And a lot of horror movies use the typical trope to have a TV news broadcaster in the background. The main characters aren't paying attention to the TV newscasting, but it's telling them something important that they need to know for later on. Some classic examples is Halloween 1978, and it's actually inspired 11 sequels, um, including the originals and other spin-offs that other directors have made, and they're even now still producing. I believe the most recent one is Halloween No Return, but it's usually the same actress. Another classic example is Scream 1996. This one has also inspired several spin-offs and adaptations. There have been parody movie series, there have been recreations of the movies, spin-offs, and even a TV series or several TV series based upon the series. Masked masked serial killers is often used in movies such as Jason, Scream, and other serial killers. A personal favorite of mine is The Autopsy of Jane Doe. It's supernatural horror, and it gets a late start because most of the movie is spent introducing the main characters and them trying to understand why this girl's autopsy is not going as it should, and why every single time they're trying to autopsy her, strange occurrences keep happening. It gets a little bit historic. It goes into things like the Salem witch trials and the murders of that time and how witches protect themselves. So it does give a bit of a historic background. And a lot of horror movie directors actually like to base their horror movies off of things that actually happened, and then they add their own supernatural twist to it. Another favorite of mine is Kingdom Come 2014. It's an escape situation with strangers in a supernatural nightmare. It begins with the strangers all waking up in a hospital, and upon trying to escape this eerie, broken down looking hospital, they realize that they're trapped there with a creature that is trying to consume their souls, which is popular also in the horror genre. So the movie has a shocking twist, and what makes the twist so shocking is because the entire plot of the movie, in a sense, didn't actually happen. And that's something that happens a lot in not only the horror genre, but horror is very frequent to have situations that were either in someone's head or written in journals. A lot of horror movies have situations that are only seen by the audience and everyone else does not know what's going on. Famous studios that create horror movies is the Saffron Company, who has created Annabelle and the Conjuring universe; Vertigo Entertainment, who's created The Grudge, The Strangers, Death Note, and Blair Witch Project; Twisted Pictures, who has created Saw and Texas Chainsaw; Platinum Dunes, who has created the Ouija movies, The Purge, and A Quiet Place; and a very, very popular one is Blumhouse, which has created The Green Inferno, Split, and Insidious. Famous director of the horror movie genre is James Wan, who has created Insidious, the Conjuring series, Saw, Annabelle, The Nun, and Malignant; Wes Craven, who has directed A Nightmare on Elm Street and the original Scream series; Mike Flanagan, who has directed Hush, Gerald's Game, Doctor Sleep, and The Haunting of Hill House; and Jordan Peele, who has directed Get Out, Us, and his upcoming movie Nope, coming out in 2002. And that's it.